Welcome to Film Detour, a podcast where two longtime film buddies take you down and around the back alleys and side streets of cinema.
With the occasional left-hand turn.
I'm John Napick.
And I'm Bob Mueller. So let's go. John, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's hit it. All right, John, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about the great Hollywood director Don Seigel.
I have to say, when you suggested this idea to do a Don Seigel show, I was really enthusiastic about it. But what's really been great for me is I've gotten only more enthusiastic about it as time has gone on. I've been doing more research and just kind of watching his movies in some kind of an order to get a full spectrum about Don Seigel as a director. And what a craftsman, right?
Yeah, it's impossible to peg him because he's done so many different genres. And we'll go through the list at some point in the show. But he's also like an everyman director. He's your average Joe kind of guy. He's not like the flashy names you know about. But as I grew up and watched a lot of films, I realized a lot of films that I really liked, he directed.
What's fascinating for me is how long he was a director for. I mean, he was directing, seems like forever. He started in the 30s, and he won 2 Academy Awards in 1945 for 2 separate short films that he did. So this guy really honed his skills from the bottom up.
Yeah.
From being an editor first, and then learning as an assistant director and a second unit director, I should say. This is where you learn your craft, right?
And that's the old Hollywood system. He was a director of montages, and he worked on the opening montage of Casablanca, but he did direct thousands of montages for films.
That's how you really learn how to make a film, because you're making the montages, right? And you're taking all this information visually, and you're telling a story in a very short amount of time. So that's a talent that you have to develop in order to do a full-length feature film and put all those pieces together.
That was the assembly line of Hollywood, right? They had
exactly right.
The feature director was like doing the actors on the stage. They had the second unit guys go get me this location, and you go shoot the montages.
They're making product, and they're like Henry Ford, right? They have an assembly line, and they're making product, and in order to do that, these people have to do different jobs, and they're slated out by the heads of the studio. But I got to tell you, man, they made a hell of a lot of good product in those days.
Yeah, I wonder if Keebler had a studio. Like the elves.
Little director elves. Yeah, that's a good idea. Sure.
In that tree they had.
That's right. It's a very small studio.
So, yeah, the Hollywood system, Don Seigel.
But he was very successful once the independence came into it. And no better example would be Clint Eastwood. He had his own independent production company that was connected to Warner Brothers, but he had say of what was going to go into the production. And here's Don Seigel coming out of that studio system and thriving. Yeah. I mean, because when you look at the films that he did, and some of the most successful films he did, they were in the 70s. And he was an old man by this point, right?
Yeah. As we said, Don Siegel's had a very long career. There's some films we really liked. One of his early films, Riot in Cell Block 11 in 1954, mainly known for its location, which is Folsom Prison. He actually shot on location, and he used actual prisoners as some extras.
Was Johnny Cash in the film, John?
The cool thing about Riot in Cell Block 11, an early producer for Don Seigel was Walter Wanger, who actually spent 4 months in jail because he shot a man he thought was having an affair with his wife.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And from that experience of being in prison, he saw the horrible conditions prisoners live under.
Well, you heard of method acting. This is method producing.
Exactly. So him and Don Seigel put this film together, and it's about prisoners having an uprising because of the terrible conditions they live under.
Well, it's a very political film. You know, certainly for the 50s, I thought it was a very political film. And later, if you watch a film like Brubaker with Robert Redford. That's a terrific prison film. And here he is, Don Seigel, talking about this stuff, and the producer talking about this stuff in the 1950s. It's a very scary-looking place, isn't it? I mean, it's got all that white granite block. I guess it's granite. And that's what it's made up of, and these iron doors. I mean, it's so white that you feel like you're in the North Pole, right? It looks like ice. Ice Station Zebra or something, right? It's crazy.
And it's got some great character actors. Neville Brand.
Neville Brand, who looks like he was carved out of granite, I think. His face looks like it's carved out of granite. He's got that great sandpaper voice, too. You don't want to mess with Neville Brand.
Yeah, he's always a heavy. He's always in war films. He was in Stalag 17, which I love, and he's great in that. It's also got Frank Phelan from It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes, he was Ernie, the cab driver, right?
Yeah. I always say the original Ernie because Bert and Ernie
from Sesame Street, of course.
Are from It's a Wonderful Life.
That's right. When you got a movie, I say 2 words, gives me a thumbs up, and that's Whit Bissell.
Whit Bissell.
And talk about being a douchebag. Whit Bissell is a dick in this, man.
And let's not forget Alvy Moore as Gator in this, but who went on to a wonderful little acting role.
Mr. Kimball on Green Acres. Just to jump back just a tiny bit here, and it's I wouldn't call it one of my favorite films, but it's really interesting to show you the diversity and the spectrum that Don Seigel has gone through in his entire career. In 1953, there's a comedy romance he did. It's called No Time for Flowers. And basically the rundown is a young girl's loyalty to the Communist Party is tested in Prague when she falls in love with an attaché who's from the U.S. When you look at this, you go, wait, this is the guy who did Dirty Harry? I don't get it. So this is an example of the kind of thing he could do, and this is the tagline from the poster: "Kisses and champagne behind the Iron Curtain."
Well, let's see. Where do we want to do this romantic comedy? What's a nice location? What about behind the Iron Curtain? Sounds like an idea.
That's a good idea.
I can imagine that was not shot on location.
No, but the thing is, he went from doing something like that to Cell Block, and now to one of our all-time favorites,
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate paranoia movie, right?
Oh, my God. Yeah. I like to call it a quiet invasion film.
Quiet Invasion,
which I read. That's not my original term.
You stole that. You stole that, John.
And it's really cool. The idea from Jack Finney, the writer, that these seeds are floating down from space and turning into pods that end up taking over our bodies. What a creepy idea.
It's totally terrifying.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, over time, people have said, oh, this is, about McCarthyism and all the paranoia and the Red Menace and all this sort of thing. But when I read an article about Jack Finney, it was an interview, and he said, it's got nothing to do with McCarthyism. It's just an idea I had, that's all.
But a really good film about paranoia fit for that time.
And some great, great shots. One of my favorite shots is the setup. The cinematography in it's terrific. Who's the cinematographer again, John? I forget.
Ellsworth Fredericks, and it's lit very much like a noir film.
Yes, it feels like a noir.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the writer, the guy who plays the writer, the guy with the pipe in his mouth, he is a mystery writer. And it has that whole feeling of this noirish thing in this apartment, or rather his house. And when you go in, it's a great shot. And this is where I think Seigel shows himself as a craftsman, but also as an artist, because there's a shot when he walks in. Kevin McCarthy walks in to this guy's house, and there's something on the pool table, and he turns the light on. He pulls the chain and turns the light on, and you see this top of somebody's head sticking out. So there's a dead body, I don't know, and we find out it's one of these things that's trying to take over the writer.
Right.
The writer's personality, his body, his whole thing.
So these pods form into these weird, look like mannequin-like bodies, but they're just forming, as you said. They're not quite fully human. It's really spooky.
It's very creepy, and it just talking about it now makes the hair go up in the back of my neck. In one of the other creepy scenes, I think it's a classic horror film, just classic. Even like you said, noir, is the scene inside the greenhouse when the two couples are all being reproduced. The pods are popping. You actually hear a popping sound. Pop.
Yeah.
And then it starts to emerge out of all these bubbles and foam. You see it's Kevin McCarthy, his girlfriend, the writer with the pipe, and Carolyn Jones, who plays his wife. So it's an intense scene, and it's really creepy.
I always wanted to be that writer. He had such a cool life. He lived in this great 50s era fancy ranch house. He had the pipe. He worked from home. He had a beautiful wife, Carolyn Jones.
I know what to get you for Christmas now. I got to get you a pipe.
There you go. And just to mention, one of Seigel's assistants on this was Sam Peckinpah, who was his dialogue coach. Talk about Hollywood system, a dialogue coach. Whatever that is, he worked with Seigel on 5 Seigel films, actually. One of them being Riot in Cell Block 11. And he learned a lot on that film about location shooting.
Well, now that you say that, it totally reminds me of The Getaway.
Oh, yeah.
That has a documentary feel to the beginning of it.
When Steve McQueen is getting out of jail, there's this beautiful montage, as we say.
Yeah, exactly. So this is where the studio system did come in handy to help build these careers that would come to fruition. Two directors right there in the 70s.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite Seigel films is one of the first pairings between Don Seigel and Clint Eastwood. And it's called The Beguiled. And Clint Eastwood plays this Union soldier who gets wounded, and he gets taken into this school for girls.
During the Civil War, which is great because, as you know, in any war, the women are home alone. All the men are gone.
Exactly.
So this spinsterish woman is running this school for girls, and here comes handsome Union soldier Clint Eastwood.
Well, the thing about it is, and like I said, it's sordid. In the beginning of the movie, this girl is going through the woods looking for mushrooms, to harvest, to bring them back, I guess, to the girls' school. And she stumbles upon Clint Eastwood, and the Confederate soldiers are kind of riding up on their horses. And in order to protect himself, he starts kissing this 12-year-old girl to kind of distract her. I mean, she's 12 years old. I mean, this is the best way of setting this whole thing up, because this shows you what this guy is capable of doing at any time for any reason.
Yeah, and there's a lot of this sexual tension about all these young women of varying younger ages, and they're all, attracted to him in some way.
And he really cranks up the sex appeal, and he really cranks up the individual factors that he sees in each person. He changes himself to fit the role that they want him to basically play. Right. And what makes it really sordid is not only just the Clint Eastwood aspect of it, but the fact that this woman had been having this incestuous affair with her brother.
Ooh. And
the brother mysteriously has disappeared over time. Ooh. So this one is very much worth your time to sit down and take a look at. Great Seigel stuff, great Clint Eastwood stuff, and fantastic performances.
And one of the early pairings of Don Seigel with 2 people, Bruce Surtees, the cinematographer, who goes on to do other films, including Dirty Harry, and Lalo Schifrin, one of your favorite composers.
He's one of my all-time favorites. I mean, if for no other reason, I'll give you 2. He did the soundtrack to Cool Hand Luke, which you can do no wrong, and he also created the theme to Mission Impossible.
Yeah, man went on to get some, I would say, buco royalties after that franchise went into the movies.
Right, because he still gets money for that, absolutely positively. And John, he did the theme to Mannix.
Oh.
Okay.
And then also I'll just mention 2 other films he did I really like. Bullet, which is another great San Francisco film like Dirty Harry, and Enter the Dragon. Funny enough.
Don Seigel was no fool. Get Surtees as much as possible and get Lalo Schifrin. We got a winning combination. Yeah. And if you can keep pulling Clint Eastwood back into the fold, it's box office Boffo.
And then the next film, again to show the variety of Don Seigel's talents, is Charlie Varick with Walter Matthau. And that's basically a kind of modern-day heist film. Feels very much like an Elmore Leonard novel to me.
Absolutely.
The whole workman-like nature to the characters, like Walter Matthau and his wife are bank robbers, and we see them at the beginning of the film just planning a heist with their 2 cohorts, and they're just doing it like it's every day.
Yeah.
It's like their job.
It's kind of like the sheepdog and cartoon with the coyote, right?
Yeah, with they clock in.
Morning, Ralph. Morning, Fred. They clock in. So that's exactly. It's okay. We're doing a bank robbery. Okay, did you punch in? I'm going to punch in now. But she's really great. She plays the getaway driver, and you talking about Elmore Leonard type things. There are a lot of quirky elements to the characters, but they're really well thought out characters because she met her husband, who is played by Walter Matthau, at some sort of a carnival, air show, rodeo-ish type thing. She's a stock car racer, so she can really drive, and he pilots a plane. And so it's all really well thought out. And it's an incredible car chase sequence where she's trying to get away from the police. She smashes into one of the police cars. The hood goes flying up. She's driving around with this open-engine car. I've never seen anything like it before, and she drives like nobody's business. But what's really disturbing about this is, and it shows you where these people are at. She gets shot at a point during this whole robbery.
Yeah.
And he has to get rid of the body.
Yes.
So she dies, and he puts gasoline and gunpowder and just lets the whole thing go up in flames so he doesn't get tracked.
Well, they set a timer. It's a great scene where he's driving away and these cops pull him over and they're about to question him and maybe get some information that they're the bank robbers. You see that great explosion way off in the distance. Okay.
Terrific movie. You got it. If you haven't seen this one, go dig it out. I mean, it doesn't have the most exciting title, Charlie Varick, but believe me, it's worth your time.
Yeah.
Next on our list of movies was The Shootest. It's the last John Wayne film, and it's a really nifty movie because it utilizes Wayne at this point in his long career, and he's dying in the film, and Wayne would die within the next 3 years afterwards.
So what's great about the film also is it's got these great Hollywood stars. Ron Howard is a young boy who idolizes John Wayne. You got Lauren Bacall. You got James Stewart pairing up again with Wayne, like Liberty Valance. John Carradine, Scatman Crothers. Come on.
Carradine's great because Carradine. Who else is going to play the Undertaker?
Yeah,
except John Carradine, right?
In a Western, right?
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. And it's got the sexy, beautiful Sherry North as well, who Don Seigel has used in other films over the course of time. What's cool about it is you see Ron Howard does the narration in the beginning of the film. You're watching this screen personality grow into a man and an older man as time goes on through the clips of old John Wayne movies.
That's really
which
cool.
is really cool. It works really well.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is that Ron Howard. We're talking about old pros, and Ron Howard was an old pro at this point because he was just a little kid on the Andy Griffith Show. When he first started out. So it must have been a real trip for this still relatively young Ron Howard working with this legend, John Wayne. It must have been incredible.
And Ron Howard, who went on to a great directing career, probably learned a lot from Don Siegel.
I didn't even think of it that way. That's
just
a very
like,
good point.
Clint Eastwood.
Right.
And Sam Peckinpah. Yeah, think of all the careers Siegel's influenced.
Well, Eastwood has cited the fact that he was a director because of Don Siegel, and he learned so much from Don and watching him put films together.
Yeah. So I know we just talked about some films we really like of Don Siegel, but just some quick honorable mentions. He's done so many things. Babyface Nelson.
Oh, with Mickey Rooney.
Mickey Rooney.
Flaming Star with Elvis Presley as a half-breed Indian.
Wow.
Also starring Barbara Eden, Jeannie from I Dream of Jeannie. And this is not one of those movies like Clambake or something. It was he actually has an acting performance in it. He's very good. And it's too bad he didn't do more acting.
Yeah. Coogan's Bluff with Eastwood, which is a great location film in New York. It's a fun film to watch because you see New York in the late 60s, and they actually have a scene where Eastwood arrives on a Pan Am helicopter that lands on the Pan Am building.
Two Mules for Sister Sarah, which I saw many times on television with Clint Eastwood and Shirley MacLaine.
What an odd pairing.
It is an odd pairing, but they're both fairly good actors, and it works really, really well. I remember enjoying that immensely when I was a kid.
Yeah, how Shirley MacLaine went from Irma La Douce playing a prostitute to a nun, I don't know, but it works.
She's a very, very skilled actress.
There you go.
Hell is for Heroes is another one. World War II drama. It's got a great cast: Steve McQueen and Bobby Darin, James Coburn, Harry Guardino, and Bob Newhart in a dramatic role.
And then one of his last films, Escape from Alcatraz.
Oh, which is a fantastic movie.
Great movie, great Clint Eastwood film. Location on actual Alcatraz Island.
On the Rock, yeah. And it's taut, it's tight, and you would not even think twice about this guy slowing down whatsoever or having, such a long career, because he hits a home run with this one, and we're talking about what, 1979?
Yep, 79.
So one hell of a career.
Yeah.
For Mr. Seigel. So what are we doing now, John? We're gonna move right on to our big one here.
Our main feature of the day, we're going to talk about Dirty Harry from 1971. Obviously starring Clint Eastwood.
But, interestingly enough, Clint was not the first choice to play Harry. John Wayne, Frank Sinatra, Robert Mitchum, Steve McQueen, George C. Scott, Burt Lancaster, and even Marlon Brando were considered. It's inconceivable at this point in time to even imagine anybody but Clint Eastwood playing that role.
Other cast members include John Vernon. He's a popular actor who ends up in several Clint Eastwood films.
Tall, dark, and with really creepy ice blue eyes with that dark hair. Always unnerved me.
He actually has a great role in Point Blank. He's opposite Lee Marvin there.
Lee Marvin. And that voice, John. That voice. That booming voice.
And he actually went on to do a couple of Eastwood films also. I know he's in Outlaw of Josie Wales. And, of course, the villain in Dirty Harry, who plays Scorpio, Andy Robinson. Andy
Robinson's amazing. His performance is really phenomenal. I mean, I've seen psychos before in movies. You got someone like, you think of Malkovich playing a psycho. You think of Christopher Walken, and they make your blood run cold. You say, "Oh, geez, these guys are really creepy." This guy takes it to another level.
Yeah,
he's just unbelievable what he does and his facial expressions. He is this psychopath. He's not just playing one.
Yeah, and they really had to convince him to do the role because in real life, Andy Robinson is your typical counterculture pacifist. He did not like violent movies. He did not want to have anything to do with guns. They had to force him to do this role, but it's amazing because he takes off in it.
Well, that's interesting because you and I were talking about this on another show and saying how Gene Hackman did not want to do French Connection. And the reason he didn't want to do French Connection was he just felt he couldn't handle all that violence and everything else. And you would never, ever know that.
He's so fit for that role.
His performance.
Yeah.
But this guy, Andy Robinson, is just phenomenal. Phenomenal.
And then there's Harry Guardino as Lieutenant Bressler.
Harry Guardino, I always loved. He's a classic, ethnic Italian actor, New Yorker, like a Tony LaBianca.
And Harry Guardino comes back as Lieutenant Bressler in The Enforcer.
Right.
So what I always loved about this film, it's a basic travelogue of San Francisco in the early 70s. Don Seigel is amazing at shooting films on location. The reason I remember this film is, as a kid, I didn't travel. I didn't go anywhere.
Right,
and
exactly.
I used to travel through movies.
Exactly.
You'd go to the theater and you see these movies, all these amazing locations. Think of James Bond films.
All your exotica right there.
This film made me fall in love with San Francisco. That's actually part of the plot of the film, is all the different locations in San Francisco.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting how the movie starts out. I mean, I've seen it, countless amounts of times, 1,000 times, on television and other ways, video. But I noticed it this time where it starts out, there's a scrolling down of names, starting back at the 1870s, of fallen San Francisco policemen. And it goes from the 1878 up to the present. And that really struck me. And I thought, well, what are they trying to do here? Are they trying to make it so the police force gives them permission to do things, that they're on their side, etc.? I wasn't really sure. And then the next thing it cuts to is a close-up of the barrel of a rifle with a silencer on the end, and it's pointing right at you, right in your face. And then it softens focus as a little further back. You can't see the face of the gunman, and his hair's kind of like flapping in the breeze. He's completely obscured, and then it cuts from there to the crosshairs of a scope.
What's cool about it is the crosshairs are kind of, you see you're high up in San Francisco on a rooftop and it's just kind of searching. It's scary in a way because it's just looking around where it's going to end up. And you end up on this girl in a rooftop swimming pool. But what also is going on is Lalo Schifrin's music. And it does have this kind of funky 70s vibe to it. But when you see the killer, suddenly it switches to this eerie female vocal.
It's almost like a horror film, right, Jim?
Yeah, it's like it's really cool how they pair this. It's signaling to the audience that there's something really disturbing here.
You know this is not going to be good. Whatever's going to happen now with this gunman, it's not going to be good. And you see what the focal point is, this poor girl just swimming on a rooftop in a pool, and then you see him pull the trigger. This all takes place in about 7 shots.
Yeah.
And you hear this, and then you see this explosion on the back of this girl's, like between her shoulder blades to the left, and then all of a sudden she starts, trying to breathe, and she's gasping for breath, and then she just slowly sinks into the water. If you're not in by this point, then you don't have a pulse.
And the soundtrack is really effective because you really feel for this girl. You can just hear her gasping and trying to get some air.
And it's so arbitrary. You can just tell, like you were saying, the scope is searching. It's searching for something to just shoot at. It's not even like, there's no real methodology to it. It's just searching for something to shoot at. And it's even more heartbreaking in that respect because this girl was just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah. And it's for no reason.
What's cool about the scene for me is, he's looking around, Harry. These cops are out there taking the body out. They're looking in the water. He looks over across the rooftop, and you see him get this idea in his head. And then there's this great montage of him just like going down to the lobby, out onto the busy street of San Francisco.
No dialogue. No dialogue. It just happens.
And he makes his way up to the roof of this building. He's inspecting the air conditioning units. It's all methodical. And then he ends up on the rooftop, and there's this beautiful wide shot pan of San Francisco, and you literally see the whole city. You see the Bay Bridge. It's like setting the film up in a time and place. This is San Francisco.
That's what's great about this cinematographer, Bruce Surtees. He's so good with a wide-angle shot, and there's so many great wide-angle shots in this movie, and he just does a beautiful job. It's a great shot.
But it's also telling us one of the characters of the film is the city itself, because the locations of the city become important to the plot.
Absolutely. Yes. Very much the character.
On the rooftop, he finds a shell, a spent casing of a .30-06 rifle bullet.
He picks it up with a pen, of course. Don't want to get fingerprints on it.
Good man. He not like in that other movie we saw where the poor cop is walking in the pool of blood.
Shivers, yes.
Shivers, yes. I guess the cops in Canada weren't as sophisticated as the Americans.
Yes, they just didn't quite have it down as well as Harry Callahan. So we learn about what's going on here. We're in the mayor's office now, and John Vernon is reading off a letter that's sent in to the mayor's office and says basically, to the city of San Francisco, I will enjoy killing one person every day until you pay me $100,000.
It's signed Scorpio, which, if any of you know and you've seen the film Zodiac, this is definitely a parallel to the Zodiac killer, who at the time was murdering people and sending letters into the press and to the police, taunting them. And this is basically what happens in Dirty Harry.
Like Berkowitz, Son of Sam.
Yeah.
Talking to Jimmy Breslin.
And what's interesting also, at the end of the letter, Scorpio writes, the mayor's reading, it will be my next pleasure to kill a Catholic priest or and he doesn't say it.
A black guy. It uses the N-word.
It's written on the note.
Even John Vernon won't say the N-word.
Oh, he knows. Back in 71, he knew.
So we have Callahan come into the office. And this is the first time we're going to hear Callahan talk. And he says, this is the mayor speaking. All right, so let's have it. And Callahan says, have what? And the mayor goes, your report. Oh, what have you been doing? Callahan goes, oh, well, for the past 3/4 of an hour, I've been sitting on my ass in your outer office waiting on you. And then he smiles. So this is the introduction we have of Callahan and who Callahan is. And, we're talking about the mayor here. Pretty ballsy.
You're talking back to the goddamn mayor, Harry. Automatically sets up the tension between him and his superiors.
Well, what's great about this, and this just shows you what a good actor Clint Eastwood is. He walks with such authority, so much self-assuredness. You know, he is this character. He's not just acting out a part, not phoning it in. It's just terrific to watch.
Also, the character, what's appealing to a lot of people, all of us, who've worked in any kind of situation where you have bosses and superiors and have to go through red tape. He's someone that just cuts right through the red tape and all the bullshit. You know, that's very appealing to people.
My favorite comeback for Eastwood, certainly in this part of the movie, is when the mayor says to him, basically, I don't want any more of that trouble you had in the Fillmore district. And, we're all wondering what's that all about. So Callahan says, well, when an adult male is chasing a female with an intent to commit rape, I shoot the bastard. That's my policy. So that sits it right up right there. And then the mayor goes, intent? And Eastwood goes, or Harry goes, he goes, yeah, intent. When a naked man is chasing a woman through an alleyway with a butcher knife and a hard-on, I figure he's not, collecting for the Red Cross. So this is the best possible comeback he could possibly have, and it actually wins the mayor's trust and respect for him at that point in time, because he says to him, you got a point.
Well, that's also the tension in the film. It's the idea that, like, the mayor, the DA, Harry's superiors, they have to work by the rules. There's certain procedures you have to follow. But right. Harry knows a lot of these laws get in the way of actually capturing the criminal. And so he's always pushing against it. And that's going on throughout the whole film.
And up to this point, we were talking about 10 minutes into the movie. All this stuff's happening in 10 minutes. And then 10 minutes into the movie, one of the most famous scenes in cinema history takes place. And
I'll just say, although this is a great location film, it's the only, and you can see why, the only scene actually shot on a studio lot.
I never knew that, really.
And it looks so real.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
It looks great.
All these years watching it, I never really thought about it. But when you actually see the scene, it is. Because it's such a complicated scene and it's done so well. But
oh my God, yeah!
There's so many extras. And the sets are done so well, you would never know. You think you're on the street.
Absolutely not.
Harry suddenly, in the middle of this film, decides to go to lunch.
Well, you gotta eat, right? You gotta eat.
And he's driving his car and he pulls up to this hamburger stand, but
the Burger Den.
He passes a guy. We notice a guy sitting in the car, and he's smoking incessantly, and he drops his butt out the window, and there's a pile of cigarettes there.
Right.
So he's been sitting there for some reason.
That's a very good device for passage of time.
Yeah. And you see Harry walking into the burger stand, and of course on the movie theater, there's a marquee there. What's playing?
Play Misty for Me. Oh. Clint Eastwood's directorial debut, which came out, I think, just a little before that.
Yeah. And so Harry goes into the burger den and he orders a hot dog. But I got to say, it's one of the best looking hot dogs.
It's about, 2 foot long? I think you got like 6 inches on either side of the bun hanging out.
I'm a fan of hot dogs, and this is a good looking hot dog. I got to say, it's got sauerkraut on it. Oh, it's really good. But we know suddenly that Harry has noticed his car because he tells the owner, call the cops. There's a car there with its engine running. Something, he knows something's not right.
Something's up. Yeah. He smells it. He's like an old bloodhound. He's a perfect example of the cop bloodhound.
Yeah. And of course, Harry is going to investigate. He coolly walks outside.
First, he takes a bite out of the dog first.
Oh yeah, of course.
So for the rest of this sequence, he's chewing on a hot dog.
Because, if there's a bank robbery happening when you're eating lunch, you're a cop. You have to finish lunch. You can't have the rest of your day without lunch.
Well, he's bringing half the lunch with him in his mouth.
Isn't that what our mothers told us? Finish your meal, Harry.
So he goes across the street. He's munching on the hot dog the whole time, and he cocks the hammer of the gun back. He does it as he's walking out towards the guy. So he means business, no ifs, ands, or buts. And then we see the guy who's robbing the bank. He comes out, he's got a shotgun in hand, and Harry yells, "Halt!" And then the guy turns and shoots at him. And we see that Harry gets hit in the leg. He's got some splatterings of blood on him from the buckshot, and he just keeps coming toward the guy. And then he points the pistol, the .44 Magnum, the gigantic pistol. He points it at him, and all of a sudden this guy goes ba-boom, down, gone. He's not dead, but he's lying there on the sidewalk right next to his gun.
And I have to say, Harry's a good shot. He just fires off one shot and hits this guy right in the shoulder area, chest, and the guy goes down, and the gun goes flying.
Perfect.
And right after that, the next robber, he comes running out the bank. He dives right through the passenger window of the car.
So it's a good move.
Yeah, and the car takes off. And, of course, it's coming right at Harry.
Hot dog in mouth.
Hot dog in mouth. I'm glad you've been keeping track of this hot dog, Bob. You know, somebody wrote a doctoral dissertation on the hot dog in this scene, I'm sure.
Did they? Well, I'm sure they could have, because that's what's beautiful about the scene is he's chewing it the entire time as he's shooting and going and dodging. It's fantastic. So he shoots at the getaway car and kills the driver, and the driver comes up on the curve, knocks over this whole florist's cart, the poor florist's cart, and hits the fire hydrant and sprays water all over the place, which you got to have that in an action sequence.
Seems like every action sequence has that fire hydrant.
Well, we saw it not too long ago. We did the show on Sorcerer, and it's exactly what happened there. So when you got a winning formula, you might as well go with it, because it gives a spectacular visual.
Yeah, and the water obviously shoots up, turns the car over.
Oh, it's just brilliant.
And that one guy, the robber who dived through the window, he tries to take off. He takes off. Harry shoots this guy one shot. The guy goes flying through the store window.
Yeah. So he makes his way after he subdues the situation. But there's total chaos. There's screaming, there's yelling, the water's up all over the place, you got debris all over, and you got Harry, the only cool person in the entire situation,
right,
who has the situation in hand as far as he's concerned. He walks towards the guy.
It's almost like he's parting the sea. It's like, there's like all this shit happening, and Harry's just like walking towards the bank, the guy on the floor.
Harry Callahan is Moses.
And this guy's still alive. Harry walks up to the guy, and the guy's there. He's bleeding. He's looking at Harry, and right within arm's reach of him is his shotgun, and he's looking down at it.
Harry, he stands there looking down. It's beautifully shot because it's from a low angle, and you're looking up. It's kind of the POV of the bank robber who's lying there on the ground, and he looks down at him. And he does it so smooth and so calmly. And originally, when you hear this line has become so overdone and so gritted of teeth and caricaturized over time in all of the different Dirty Harry movies. But in this one, he says very smoothly, very calmly, I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I kind of lost track of myself. But being this is a .44 Magnum, most powerful handgun in the world, and can blow your head clean off, you got to ask yourself, do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? You can't beat that for dialogue. And you know, the thing about this movie is there have so many different writers on it, but this particular piece is written by John Milius. It's classically written, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah, the two writers, the main writers on the screenplay were Harry J. Fink and R.M. Fink and Dean Reisner. As Bob said earlier, they had so many actors they considered for the role. Every time there was an actor, there seemed to be a new writer involved, and John Milius got on board, but also Terrence Malick.
Well, I think he started coming up as a script doctor himself, because he was a really good writer and he knew how to take dialogue and punch it up.
Right. So clearly, this line, as you said, is a John Milius line.
And also, Milius is also responsible for another great scene, which is the scene in Jaws where Quint is talking about being on the Indianapolis.
Oh.
John Milius wrote that scene as well. So if you need to punch something up, bring in John Milius. He'll punch that dialogue up for you.
And I have to say, this scene alone sent the Smith & Wesson stock soaring through the roof because it became a very popular handgun.
That's kind of crazy. But,
we are a gun culture.
You could see how that would happen because it's definitely a macho scene.
And in the next scene where we see Harry go back to the station, he meets Harry Guardino, the Lieutenant Bressler, his lieutenant, and in the office is this young Mexican detective who the lieutenant tells him is his new partner.
Chico Gonzalez.
And Harry wants nothing to do with it, not because the guy's Mexican, but because Harry has a history of getting his partners either killed or wounded, right. And he obviously works better alone. He's a lone wolf.
Yeah. It's actually safer for everybody around just to let Harry do his own thing. And if Harry's gonna get hurt or killed, that's up to Harry.
Yeah. The next scene starts at another great San Francisco location, Washington Square.
There's a really nice transition there. They have all these scale models, but before you did computer models and stuff. They have all these physical scale models of the rooftops in the city, and the shot comes in on the model of the rooftop of this church, and it cuts right to it.
Just to clarify that, in the police station, they have a scale model of the city because they're checking the rooftops. They want to. Right. They know this guy is going to shoot from somewhere on the rooftop, so they're scoping out the city. Great transition, actually. Good point there, Bobo.
Thank you, sir. That's why I'm here.
So then we obviously cut to the real Washington Square, and it's this beautiful church, and we see this guy scoping out the crowd, and what's unsettling to me at the very beginning, he's kind of looking around. You see the park, you see the square, kids playing, you see the steps of the church, and we know he's either looking for a priest or a black man because he said so in his letter.
Right. Exactly.
And it's very unsettling.
There's so much tension in the scene. You don't know what the hell he's going to do. Now, he may try to shoot a priest or a black guy, but he may try to shoot that little kid. You have no idea. So you're on such tenterhooks.
Yeah.
He finally picks somebody out. There's a black guy there. He's part of a gay couple, and they have getting some ice cream and stuff. And they're just walking across the street. He's kind of, having a little fun, dancing around and stuff, and having a good time. And you see the eyes widen on our psycho Scorpio. Yeah. And he says, okay, you could see in his eyes, that's the guy I want. That's my victim right there. And as they walk into the park, they're obscured by the trees. And you see him start to freak out. He's really tense and he's really anxious because he already made his decision. He wants this person here. This is the person he wants. And now I can't have him. Where'd he go? And you're just going, oh my God, just stay behind the trees to this black guy. Stay behind the trees.
What's really cool about the shot is it's long. It's a very long shot because we're from his point of view on the rooftop.
On the rooftop, yeah.
And you don't really hear what these people are saying. They're so far away.
Yeah.
So they go behind the trees, and you're like, wait a minute, where'd they go? You're kind of rooting for Scorpio, and it's...
you missed a chance. Shucks.
But it's almost like the scene in Rosemary's Baby, where... Yeah. You know the scene where they're looking down the hall, and he's on the telephone?
Yeah.
And he's just out of frame. You don't see him on the telephone. You're looking, you want to look around the corner, but you can't see them. And like you're looking, where are these guys coming out? Come out of the trees.
Exactly. So he does come out of the trees and he sits down on the bench and they're having a nice little time, having their ice cream cones. And this guy's drawing a bead on him. He's got him in the crosshairs and he's just about to shoot. And all of a sudden we hear this helicopter overhead.
Right. The cops have been combing the city in helicopters, and we hear the announcer, right? The cops on the PA system, like, you there, stop what you're doing. As if, okay, officer.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Generally, a psychopath with a rifle is just going to say, oh, I'm sorry, was I doing something wrong?
Yeah, I'm going to put the rifle down and wait for you to land somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And wait for us don't leave before we get there. So what's great about this performance of Andy Robinson is that he's not your run-of-the-mill psychopath. He really takes it up another notch. And he's looking up at them like a vampire. hissing and cowering from a crucifix, being put on him. And the performance is amazing.
What's also great about the character is when you first see him, finally we see the guy. They make a point of showing his boots, and he's got spit-shined army boots. So was this guy a Vietnam vet, and all the problems that brought back to society? We don't know. He's dressed like a hippie almost, and so he's
absolutely
young. He's very boyish looking, right?
Yeah.
So he's an odd villain, right? It's like this weird. This is the result of the counterculture. This is what happens. When kids run wild.
All that permissiveness, no good. But what? Just before we just get out of the scene, my heart was in my throat while I'm watching this, and I've seen it 100 times, 1,000 times, whatever. I've seen it so many times. Is that this guy has no idea? This black guy who's sitting there having an ice cream cone on a nice sunny day has no idea how close he came.
Yeah. Right.
And that's the chilling thing,
right?
Because you would have no idea of knowing.
So the next time we see Harry and Chico. So the police are combing the city, and they're looking now for this guy with a tan suitcase, because that's how he was seen from the helicopter.
Tan suitcase and tan chinos.
So
right,
Chico
exactly.
and Harry are now driving through nighttime San Francisco, and it's through the red light district. Watching this as a young man, I'm thinking, wow, San Francisco is just the coolest place in the world, because it just looks so exciting. You got the red light district, you got beautiful people walking around, everything's happening, and there's Harry Callahan. And they're looking, and Chico spots a guy up ahead with a suitcase.
With a tan suitcase and tan chinos, exactly.
They see the guy walk down an alley, or Chico sees him turn down an alley.
Does, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Harry decides he's going to follow him on foot, and Chico's going to come around the other side in his car.
Now, this is what I was talking about cinematography before, and Bruce Surtees. And what I love about the film is the darkness. Not in tone of theme and whatnot, because there's certainly that, but darkness, real darkness on film. Because so many films, a lot of films are still shot day for night, where they just, shoot it during the daytime, an overcast day or something. They tone it down, they have a filter on it, some way to make it look like night, and you don't have to light it all up. Or other times, they flood it with light, and they have blue gels in the lights, and it's just all blue lighting, like it's blue moonlight or something.
I hate that. I hate blue gels as nighttime. Every time I go out, I'm looking for that blue light. Where's the blue light?
Yosemite John has an opinion about this. So, what I love about it, and I love about the cinematographer, why he's just so brilliant, is this is what night looks like.
Yeah.
It's all these little lights, all these little incidental things. You just get light from the windows of an apartment, or you just get this little spotlight because it's a night light in a garage somewhere.
Beautiful.
And when he goes through this alleyway, all you can see of him, he's totally backlit, and there's not that much light, but he's totally back. He's this shadow going up this really dark alleyway, and it's one of my favorite scenes of the movie because of the blackness. This cinematographer was not afraid of darkness at all.
So Harry follows this guy up the alley, and he suddenly hears, there's a lot of great audio too, he suddenly hears a door slam, an apartment door slam, and you hear this guy, hey, what's going on? He's just arrived at this apartment, and Harry, there's a ground floor window there.
Well, what's interesting is before you even hear that, you hear little noises in the alleyway. It's totally dark. Once again, this is Bruce Surtees. The alleyway's totally dark, like it would be. And you're just hearing little sounds, and Harry either stepped on or pushed a cat aside or knocked a cat over off the garbage cans or something, and you hear this meow, and then you hear a little kid crying because the cat's meow woke them up or something. And then he hears what you just said, John. He hears
the guy going to the apartment.
Goes into the apartment.
I have a question for you. When is this cat ever going to learn? He seems to be in every one of these films.
There's actually in Quadrophenia, there's a cat meowing. Could be the British version of that or something.
Is it like in Modern Romance where they call up the cat? The one cat sound effect? I need a cat. You have the cat? Yeah, get the cat in the alley.
No, that's Hulk with a cat, John. So you have Clint Eastwood climbing up on top of these garbage cans and to get a view of what's going on in the window, and that's when you finally see him lit. which is what naturally would happen. He would walk into the light from the window, and then you could see something.
And what's great about the scene, again, multicultural San Francisco, the guy he was following, it's a Chinese guy in a pea coat. He's got a case. And he calls this woman in. This white woman comes in, this heavyset white woman, and he opens the suitcase and he's got all these frilly things for her. It's such an odd pairing, I just have to say.
It is. I would say it's an odd couple for sure.
And she starts undressing for the guy.
He lifts the back of her dress up because I think he wants to progress
things. He lifts the back of her dress up, and she starts taking her clothes off. But what's interesting about the film is 1971. You would think there's some kind of code or anything, but there's lots of nudity in the film and a lot of blood.
Yes, true. Well, that's true. But I'm thinking, I don't remember as much blood and whatnot, but a lot of you and I both grew up during a period. We watched a lot of these on television. I mean, maybe it was cut for TV or something.
I saw this in the theater in the 70s, and I do not remember as much nudity, so they may have cut it for the theater.
Did you pay to get into the theater, John, or did you sneak in?
No, we snuck into the theater. You had to go in with an adult. We would find a guy going in by himself and beg them to buy us the theater tickets.
Well, you got to get in to see that R-rated movie. You're going to die otherwise, right?
I got to say, that's how I saw Bullet, and that's how I saw French Connection, and this film as a underage teenager.
So he's up on the garbage cans. He's looking into the window, and all of a sudden we see this point of view shot where the camera goes sweeping down and falls, and then we see struggle going on. Harry's on the ground, and this guy lays into him with a big punch. And he says, "You peeping Tom? Yeah, filthy pie hawker." Now, I had never heard the term pie hawker before. Have you? What's a pie hawker anyway? Do you know?
Maybe they knocked on windows and sold pies. I don't know.
I didn't think of that. I was thinking more of you leave the pie out on the ledge
you're
to
right.
cool.
That's it, Bob. That's it.
I don't know.
We saw Warner Brothers cartoons. You put the pie to cool on the windowsill.
Exactly
you got
right.
it. That's
Maybe
it.
that's it. But we could have figured that one out. Pie hawker. I'd never heard that term before.
But there's a group of guys, and they wail into them. You hear the punches.
They're all pretty, kind of middle-aged and whatnot, but they're beating the living shit out of him. And finally, Gonzalez comes down and just, says, stop.
He fires a shot.
He does fire a shot, you're right. So he stops the whole situation from going on any further, and when he shoots that gun off, they look. And what's great about it, once again, that the darkness is you just see like some reflections off of foreheads, and you see like a little bit of a glint of the eye looking down, because that's what you would see in the dark. You wouldn't see anything else in the dark.
And what's funny is Chico or Gonzalez, the by the rule book, he wants to bring them in. He wants to haul them all into the police station for beating on a cop, and Harry's like, let him go.
But what I want to know is this. These guys were just ambling through that alleyway to basically, avenge, somebody looking in a window. But, who's the pie hawkers here? Because we got Dirty Mary, right?
That's her name. Hot Mary. We got Hot
Mary up there, who comes to the window, by the way, for one more flash. A little Roger Corman for you.
There you go.
A little more flash of her chest, and then she pulls down the shit. But these guys are, who's the real pie hawkers here? Were they going in to check out Hot Mary? I don't know. Maybe
what are they doing in that dark alley?
Not exactly model citizens, I think.
All right. So obviously, Scorpio's been thwarted from his rooftop shooting, and we find out that he ended up shooting a young black kid, a 10-year-old black kid. And you hear one of the cops, you hear them talking, and he blew away part of his face. It's such a sad scene because Harry's on the scene, and you see the kid's body covered with a sheet, and there's the poor mother.
The mother.
And she's just standing there, heartbroken.
It's awful. It's just so awful. And once again, it's just so arbitrary.
Yeah.
This guy just is just shooting people for the sake of it. He has no grudge. He's just going to do it until he gets paid. It's awful.
Yeah.
It's so awful.
And so the police have now figured out this guy's working from the rooftops. They're going to set a trap for him. And what they've done is they've had all the rooftops in the city locked down. They're patrolling all the neighborhoods except one neighborhood, North Beach, to kind of lure this guy into the neighborhood.
Right.
And Harry and Chico are up on a roof.
Opposite the church.
opposite the church. Harry has a rifle. Chico's got the
flashlight.
He's the flashlight man.
So the thing is, I would not want to be Chico in this situation because,
hey, you're the rookie. You're the flashlight man. I'm sorry.
He's the guy shining the light.
Harry, can I have the rifle? Sorry, kid. You're the flashlight man.
He's gonna be the focal point. You're looking at the light, and that's gonna be the first thing you shoot at.
Well, you duck down. You just stick your arm up, Bob.
Well, he can't see where he's shining the light, John. That's not going to work. He's got to look at where he's shooting, where he's shining the light. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So, he's the focal point now. So he's going to get shot easily because what are you going to shoot at? You're going to shoot at the light first.
So they're waiting for this guy to show up.
And this is beautifully lit again. It's lit by this huge vertical Jesus Saves neon sign. There's red neon, and it turns to blue, and then it turns to red again. I guess it's like a triangular sign. It's all running vertically. Down below, we're seeing Harry and we're seeing Gonzalez. It's lit from this neon sign.
Yeah, and they're looking over the cityscape, and what's really cool about the scene is Harry has binoculars, and there's kind of a rear window scene where he's looking across the roofs and the life in the city, and you see all these little slices of life. You see a couple kissing on the street. There's another couple arguing. And then he swoops up, and you're looking into the window, and there's the proverbial naked hippie chick walking around in this apartment. And I have to say, here you go, full nudity.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that that's taking it beyond the normal Roger Corman guidelines.
Yeah.
You could have full nudity from the back, but it had to be from the waist up only.
Right.
And here we said a full-fledged, and I tell you, John, for a young man sitting there in a theater that he snuck into, that must have made quite the impression on you.
It did. He's watching her, and she goes from one window. You see her going to another room, so she disappears from this window. She ends up in the next window, and she's answering the door. And she opens the door, and there's this couple there.
Like it's the mailman.
Yeah, she does no bathrobe.
Like she's fully dressed, but she's not.
She's like, come on in. They come in, all smiling and happy, and Harry's loving it.
Well, it's a little menage a trois gonna unfold right in front of you, and hey, it's a work night. You got stuff to do, but how can you possibly look away from this? And Harry says to himself finally, because he knows he's supposed to be working, and he's looking for Scorpio. He goes, Harry, you just got to live a little sometimes.
Suddenly, we hear the spooky music that signals
Lalo Schifrin.
Lalo Schifrin's music changes to the.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Very spooky.
That was spooky. And so, Scorpio's suddenly around, and they spot him on that rooftop across from the church.
Exactly.
And it's a very cool scene because you kind of see him. You don't see him. There's laundry hanging. There's this wood structure. So he's going in and out of the shadows.
Well, that's what's creepy about it. It's this little place for him to. It's almost like a sea creature.
Yeah.
It comes out of the seaweed, goes out the way, retreats back into it, but you can't see inside that. Just the way the lighting is, you can just see the wash line. And there's one shot that takes place, and you're just waiting for Scorpio to come out of that wash.
Yeah.
And he says, hit him with the light. I think I see him. And Gonzalez hits him with the light, and Harry tries to shoot him a couple times.
He
no
just
dice.
Takes a shot. Like, I was thinking, like, what happened to, like, public safety rules? Like, this is a high-powered rifle, and he's, like, shooting down an apartment building.
Well, he is shooting at the roof. I mean,
I know, but these bullets go through walls. I was just thinking, like, holy cow, Harry, go for it. And Scorpio surprises him because he doesn't have his rifle anymore. He's got
a little upgrade.
He's got an upgrade. He's got a freaking machine gun.
Yeah, it's really intense, and he just lets loose on the opposite building.
And he's laughing all the time.
Oh my God! He's having
the
the greatest time shooting these guys up, and because he knows he's got an upper hand here. These guys got one shot at a time. He's got so you see him splatter this neon sign, just trash it, and there's this sparks and glass and powder and other things coming down on top of Callahan and Gonzalez. And now, which is logical, there's no light.
Yeah. Right.
It's all darkness now because that neon sign was lighting up that whole section.
But I do have to ask, like, maybe the rooftop was a very good studio shot, but it looked real. Because did they build that sign and destroy it? Because that sign is a big sign, and it was literally destroyed. It wasn't miniature they're destroying. Because, as you said, it's raining down on them. It's an amazing set piece.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So he escapes.
And then the next scene is a very heartbreaking scene where at the mayor's office, they've gotten a note from Scorpio. He's kidnapped a young 14-year-old girl.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. It's awful.
She's buried alive. She's got how much oxygen?
Oh, she has enough oxygen until 3 a.m. And you see the pictures of the girl, and it's just awful. Scorpio sends a pair of the girl's panties, a lock of her hair.
And very sadly, he's also sent one of her molars. And you can see it in a little tissue paper.
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, they said that the tooth was probably pulled out with a pair of pliers. And you could just imagine just the whole situation of this girl. And here's an example. You don't have to show graphic violence.
Right.
If you just lay it out there like that, your imagination does all it needs to do with
exactly.
that.
It's so gruesome, and it's so
horrible.
sad. Yeah.
And you're just hoping, please let this girl make it out of here alive.
Yeah. And the mayor, of course, he can't just disregard this. He's willing to pay this ransom, which is now at $200,000, you said?
Yes.
And, he's got to do it. That's his job. He can't not do it. And Harry, of course, knows the worst. He's like, she's dead, don't you? The problem is, for these officials, is they're between a rock and a hard place also. This guy's got them over a barrel. Harry, he knows he's a killer. He's a stone-cold killer. There's no negotiating with the guy.
No.
But of course, you got to play by the rules.
So Harry says, okay, I'll be the bag man. He goes into this long sequence of being run around from one phone booth to the next.
Yes. Before cell phones, you had a phone booth, a landline.
And this shows you how smart this guy is. He's a psychopath. He's really smart to be able to work all these different things out. And he really enjoys playing with Callahan. Because he knows he's got the upper hand.
And what's great, I enjoy the scene because he's going to lead Harry on this wild goose chase around different neighborhoods of San Francisco. It's at night. And again, it's another great montage of Harry being led from one phone booth to the other. And you get to see all these great things. And Harry's on foot. He's got Chico following him, listening on a radio.
Unbeknownst to Scorpio, Harry's figured out a way so he can stay in some kind of contact.
Yeah.
But the whole point is that Scorpio wants to run him around as much as possible so nobody is following him.
Right. And Scorpio's laid it out in such a way that he's figured out how much time it takes to get from one phone booth to the other. And he tells Harry, you better get there by the fourth ring or the girl dies. So poor Harry Callahan's got to run with this bag of money all over San Francisco. The first great thing is Harry's standing on this dock, and we hear the phone ring, the first phone ring, and Harry looks, and the damn phone is like half a mile down the dock.
He's got to run all the way.
It's a great reverse angle shot because you see him start off, and then you're from the phone booth, and you see Harry running for the phone, and he gets it.
He says, if I feel even remotely like you're being followed, if you talk to anybody, I don't care if it's a Pekingese pissing against the lamppost, the girl dies.
I thought that's such an odd choice. A Pekingese.
But, a Pekingese is just a funny line, John. Just a funny line.
A Pekingese pissing. What's that called? Alliteration.
It's called alliteration. Exactly right. So the thing is, this whole sequence is nothing but tension filled, and there's no real dialogue. There's some stuff on the phone with Scorpio, but you're watching him make his way through the city. And one of the coolest ones is when he gets on the subway. I really love the way this scene is shot. It's all available light, and it has this neat grainy quality to it. And there's so much tension built up with just Clint sitting there on the train, on his way to his next destination. No dialogue.
Yeah.
Man, oh man, Don Seigel.
And then, of course, at the next booth, when he answers the phone, Scorpio's effing with him, and he knows he's been sitting on this trolley. He's like, sounds like you got a good rest. you'll need it. Because the next location is obviously going to be far away.
And he's got to hoof it.
He's got to really hoof it. And it's a great montage of Harry running through all these various locations. And then he ends up at Mount Davidson Park, which is the highest peak in San Francisco.
And there's this gigantic concrete crucifix. And that's where he wants the money dropped.
Yes.
It's a really chilling scene because when Harry's making his way up, you and I were talking about this not too long ago, about how tall that crucifix is.
Yeah.
You know, Clint Eastwood's 6'4", 6 foot whatever.
Yeah.
And you see him as he approaches, he seems to shrink in size compared to this giant crucifix.
Yeah.
Which is shot in a really nice wide angle shot with just this burst of light on the crucifix.
And what's cool is they run the shot. Like Harry gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
He really
Yeah.
gets. It's amazing how big this crucifix is. I'd love to visit it because it seems so huge.
So he gets up to that point. Scorpio says, "Okay, stop. I want you to show me the gun," because he knows he's a cop.
Yeah.
So he says, "Okay, take it with your left hand and pull it over to your left side." He's very specific about it. And he holds it out there. And he goes, "My, that's a big one."
It is.
Well, it's just, here's another example of this guy effing with him, and he's just playing him all along for laughs.
I did read that line was ad-libbed by Andy Robinson. That's his
Really?
contribution. Yes. Everyone laughed. They did another take, but they decided to go with it.
That's a great line. I love that. It always made me laugh.
It's a
when I
funny
saw that.
line. And the screwed up thing about the scene for me is poor Harry. This guy is a fucking psycho, and you know he's got a gun.
Right.
Harry's got to know this guy's going to try and kill him anyway.
Right.
Whether, it just imagine that, right?
Believe me, I saw this movie I don't know how many times. My heart's still in my throat when I'm watching this take place, and I know what happens.
Yeah.
The tension is there. You can't get rid of it.
So he tells Harry to put his face up against the cross, right up against the cement. And there's a great high-angle shot from I don't know how they got this, because it's not a helicopter shot. The thing is high. It's a high-angle shot looking down from the cross. And
Right.
you see him approach Harry. It's such a great shot.
So Scorpio, he hits him with the butt of the gun. Boom! He hits him with the butt of the gun really hard, knocks him down. And then he starts beating the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And says, "If you raise that hand one more time, the girl dies." And he's really enjoying this the whole time he's doing it. But it's even creepier because he has this red ski mask on while he's doing this. So you can just see his lips protruding and his eyeballs
His
raging.
bulging eyes and his red lips.
Yeah.
He's so weird looking too.
Yeah.
It's just and his voice is so bizarre. He's so hopped up, he's really charged. And
he's enjoying beating the shit out of Clint Eastwood. He's just going,
and he's
boom,
telling
boom.
him, "Don't you pass out." He's knocked Eastwood in the head with the butt of this rifle. Eastwood's like,
No,
woozy.
don't you pass out. No. Don't pass out yet. Don't pass out yet. I want you to know I've changed my mind. I'm going to let the girl die.
Right.
And he's so excited about this and so happy to let Harry know before he kills him.
Yeah. And luckily, Chico shows up.
Yeah. Thank God for Chico.
Because he's been hearing this on the radio.
Right.
He knows. He's been hearing this happen, so Chico's booking it up that hill.
He shoots, misses him, and Harry cries out, "Don't kill him."
Yeah.
And you're thinking, why not?
We need him alive. We got to get the girl, which is true. Chico has fired at Scorpio. Scorpio
Right.
turns and wails with this machine gun on Chico. And he's firing away. And Chico, tripping back over a rock, he gets hit. I mean, it's...
And Harry, luckily, has this switchblade he smartly took with himself. He pulls it off and jams it right into the thigh of Scorpio. And what happens is Scorpio gives this unearthly wail. I've never heard a sound like that before.
It's like a wounded animal.
Yeah, it's really hideous. Once again, this guy Andy, holy cow, can this guy act?
And it's a great scene because he, as you said, wails, he hobbles off.
Yeah, with the sticking out of his leg.
And there's some justice in the world because the guy trips and he goes tumbling down this steep wooded hill into the brush.
And it's still sticking out of his leg.
It must have hurt like hell.
Oh, my God.
It's just,
couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
I'm telling you. And he lands, and he just goes hobbling off. And there's Harry. Finally, he just passes out. So the next scene, they found out from a doctor at a local hospital that some guy came in with a leg wound, a knife wound. And he remembered this guy from the neighborhood, and he thinks he lives at the stadium across the street from the hospital. And this is the old Kezar Stadium in San Francisco. It's a great location. It's actually where the 49ers and the Raiders used to play at different times.
Really? Okay, I didn't know that. That's a big-ass stadium, man.
So Harry is going to go investigate with another partner because now Chico is in the hospital. He lived, thank God, and he's in the hospital. But Harry now has an older guy we've seen before, a detective. And they're going to go investigate this stadium because they've heard that Scorpio is living in the caretaker's room.
Exactly.
Harry climbs over the fence, and suddenly you cut to the darkness. We're inside, and you just see this shaft of light, and it's lighting these two crazy eyes.
Yeah.
Just reminded me a lot of, like, Dracula, right?
Absolutely. Just the way Lugosi's eyes are lit with the little band of light.
Yeah.
To make his eyes kind of just light up and electric.
Another signal that this guy is a monster, right? Another visual cue.
That's a very good way of looking at it. Yeah, absolutely. Wait, this is a really surreal scene for me. And I always found it really disturbing. And I remember the trailer for the television trailer, not the regular trailer for the movie. I saw that recently. It was terrible. I remember a major portion of it had to do with Harry going toward Scorpio in the stadium. And what makes it so surreal is his partner hits all the lights in the stadium. And we have this dark scene suddenly turns to daylight, this artificial daylight that just really throws you off to where you are in time and space.
So Scorpio starts running across the field in darkness.
And then the lights come on. It's almost, once again, you talk about the monster movie thing.
Yeah.
Here you have this monster running across the field, and no, it's
exactly.
The vampire is being,
That's great.
killed by the sunlight. So he's hobbling across the way. It's always interesting to see people who are running away from somebody who's wounded, or there's something wrong with their leg, or they're out of breath. And they're never going to get away from this guy.
Yeah.
But I guess there just is that fight or flight reflex we all have.
Yeah.
And you're going to go with it. So he's running and trying to hobble run. And he finally just turns and puts his hands up like he's surrendering. Harry points the gun at him, and boom, he shoots him anyway. Doesn't make any difference. We are not letting you get away now. That's
exactly.
It. Miranda writes my ass.
And the guy goes flying. Yeah, it's a great scene. He just goes flying.
Once again, I saw this in the trailer for the television version, and his voice changes again. He starts sounding sort of like a little old lady or something. And you're going, what is that voice coming out of that face?
He's pleading for his life like a little weasel he is.
The sound of his voice is so weird.
He's groveling.
He looks like an old wounded lady or something. His hair is all slicked back. He's cowering. It's an unbelievable and unnerving performance.
What's crazy about the scene is he's groveling on the floor. He's like, please don't kill me. You tried to kill me. I want a lawyer. I have the rights. I have rights.
But to hear how your voice changed, he sounds so timid now, and he's like a little mouse. I have rights. I have rights. And you're going, oh my God, this thing has no rights. Just kill it.
Well, Harry, he needs to get the information of where this girl is.
Right.
So this is a very interesting scene in the film. I think the film kind of all centers on this. Like Harry, he steps on the guy's wound. On his leg. His partner runs up, and he tells his partner, go out and get some air, Fatso. Because he doesn't want to implicate his partner in this. He knows he's going to do something illegal.
He also doesn't want to be told to do nothing.
Yeah, right.
So luckily, this guy is savvy, and he's of the old school, and he's just going to go, okay, I'm going to go out and get some air or get some coffee or whatever.
Yep.
It's horrific. You see this monster thing screaming in pain as Harry steps on the wound. He says, where's the girl? Tell me where the girl is. And he wants this information no matter what. And I go back to Jack Bauer again, because that's exactly what Jack Bauer did in 24. Constantly. Yeah. He was constantly beating people up or torturing them to get information from them. And the shot, it's one of the best helicopter shots I've ever seen in my life. It's a pull-away shot, and it comes up above the stadium, and you just see Eastwood standing there in the distance, stepping on that leg, and the guy writhing in pain. And then you see the fog of the area around it as you're coming out of it. It's like some sort of nightmarish dream sequence.
I've always noticed this in Clint Eastwood films, even in all the next Dirty Harry films. There's always helicopter shots.
Absolutely.
And you just know he picked that up from here. He got another thing he got from Don Seigel.
He absolutely has. There's a lot of helicopter shots in the Dirty Harry movies that Clint Eastwood directed. And a variety of other movies he directed as well. So yes, I totally agree. But that is one of the best helicopter shots I've ever seen. No steady cam. Nothing. And it is smooth as silk, and it's beautiful pullback.
But what's interesting about the scene, this is kind of what the theme of the movie turns on. As this guy's pleading for his rights, and this is something Harry's always fighting about with his superiors. Criminals are getting all the rights while the victims are suffering. And Harry here is kind of turning that on its head. He's going to find this girl no matter what he has to do. He's going to break the law. He's going to torture this guy.
He'll kill him.
Yeah, he'll kill him in the end if he has to.
Well, unfortunately, they find the girl. Heartbreaking.
Harry's standing there.
It's the Golden Gate Bridge.
And he's looking out on the Golden Gate Bridge, right. It's a beautiful shot. And here's this poor girl being lifted out by these cops out of a manhole.
She's completely naked, and she's long dead.
And you can just imagine what her last moments was like. It's terrible.
Horrible.
It's terrible.
Horrible.
But of course, right after now you feel for Harry, and obviously you feel for the girl, I should say, but you know what Harry had to go through to get this information. We cut to the DA's office, and they're berating Harry because they can't do anything to convict him because Harry broke all the rules to get this information.
And they have to let him go.
They have to let him go.
Because they technically have no evidence. And you as an audience member are going, what? You got to be kidding me. Yeah. That's crazy. And that's what Harry is going through at this point in time.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want vigilante justice. We want to have laws. We want to have the police obey the laws as well.
Yeah.
But in this situation, you want to be able to bend things because you see the horrific things that can go on, and you let this killer go? It just seems insane.
But unfortunately, as we know today, laws are broken by policemen, so it's a very thin line.
It is a very thin line, and believe me, it was on my mind while I was watching the movie.
No, it's an interesting film to watch these days because you really question yourself and you have to really run through that whole gymnastics in your head about it.
Put yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
And then we go to this shot of this twisted peace sign on his belt buckle. And it's so fitting because you mentioned something before about him being a hippie type counterculture. So he's got this twisted peace sign as a belt buckle, and it always unnerved me because it was so twisted and so weird in shape.
It's like handmade almost, or hand bent, say, yeah.
But it's just completely twisted, and it to me it's like symbolic of how twisted this guy is, and he's wearing this twisted little peace sign.
Yeah, it's huge too. It's
huge.
Big.
Yeah, well, you know the 70s loved those big belt buckles, so that's how it worked. So then he goes to this guy, and what I'd like to know is where do you find a guy like this in the Yellow Pages? You look for under kinky masochists. What do you look under? You go sadists who have a service. I mean, how do you beat the shit out of me?
He always reminds me of Curtis Mayfield.
Absolutely.
He's got the little beanie, right? And
yeah,
the
he's a
beard.
little on the gray. He's got the glasses and stuff. He reminds me of Kurt. I was just to say that myself.
So Scorpio, you see him going through this old warehouse, and there's this guy there,
Right?
And apparently Scorpio's paid this guy, right?
No, I always wondered what it was. Was it what? Why would you even give out a service like this? Do you know these kinky masochists or something? I always thought there was
maybe.
I always thought there was maybe some sort of sexual thing because he goes to him. He goes, "Oh, you want the full $200 worth?"
I think it is set up that way. Like before you know what's going to happen, here he walks to this weird location. There's a big black guy there. He's giving him money to do something violent, but you don't know what context it is, right? So you do maybe feel, what the fuck is, because this guy's weird enough as he is, right? Scorpio.
Right. Well, we end up finding out why Scorpio wants this done, but I'm thinking the black guy. Why would he have a service where he beats you up for $250
Hey, it's
or whatever the
cash.
hell?
It's a lot of money, I think, in 1971.
Who would want to be beaten up? This is what I'm trying to get
Maybe
at.
he didn't have a shingle out. Maybe he was just found in a bar or something. But in any case, you see the guy take the stool, put it down, and he puts on these leather gloves, so you know he means business.
And that's the creepy part. There's a shot of a shadow of one of the hands against the wall, and they're shooting the shadow, and you see him putting the glove on through the shadow.
Yeah.
And that really makes it creepy because you're going, wow, what the hell is going to go on here?
Just to cut to the chase here, Scorpio is paying this guy to beat him.
To beat the living shit out of him so he looks like Harry beat the living shit out of him.
Right. Looks like the cops beat him.
So he can keep Harry away from him.
It's a very violent scene because the sound effects of this guy punching him.
Oh my God.
Sometimes you feel those punches.
Absolutely
it's really
can feel them. You
heavy,
bet.
these shots.
Yeah.
You see Scorpio's face after a couple of punches. It's freaking bent out of shape. I mean, this is some great makeup.
His whole face is swollen. He looks like a monster.
Yes, his cheeks are puffed out. Everything. It's just all out of shape. I always found it funny when you see these movies, even modern movies. The guys get beat up, and they just are like a bruise or something. Here, this is what your face would look like. It's just blown out of proportion.
Certainly, if you had this Curtis Mayfield guy doing it, I could tell you that much.
And Scorpio's such a nut job. The guy's almost tired, and he's like, "You sure you want the rest of it?"
And then he throws an ethnic slur at the guy, and the guy goes, "All right, fine, here."
As if you want to piss this guy off anymore.
Right.
That's how crazy Scorpio is.
He got his money's worth, that's for sure.
So after this scene, of course, Harry is in the press. Harry's accused of police brutality. And so Harry's kind of had enough of it. And then they learn from Scorpio that he's going to kidnap a bus full of school children.
Right. Scorpio goes to this bus stop area that he knows kids are getting off. So he rushes up the stairs. He's still hobbling. He gets on the bus. He looks terrible. He's got bruises on his face. He's got tape over his nose to hold his nose in place. He looks horrible. And he goes into the bus. He goes, "Hi, kids." And he says to the bus driver, "Just get driving." And she says, I can't go anywhere with somebody else in the bus. He says, "Hear me, old hag. I'm telling you to drive or I'll decorate the bus with your brains." Now, that's an interesting turn of phrase there. It's not like, "I'm going to splatter your brains," whatever. I'm going to decorate the bus with your brains. Because this is a psychopath talking, so that's what he would think of. He's decorating the bus with their brains. He'd actually like that. It's really unnerving.
It's an unnerving scene, but in subtle ways, too, because he turns to the kids, and they're like, "Where are we going?" He's like, "We're going to the ice cream factory." This is like the perverted Willy Wonka here. It's like
exactly. That's
so
a good
bizarre.
point. And he's trying his best to get them to go along with this. So he says, somebody must know a little song. So they start singing Old MacDonald. And this goes on for a while. And what this reminded me of while they're singing this, because they're cutting back and forth to the outside of the bus and making its way through traffic. And they're saying, "Old MacDonald had a farm." And it goes on and on and on in this little kid sing-songy way. But it reminded me of the scene in The Birds.
Oh,
when
yeah.
the kids are in the
Right.
school and the crows are massing and they're singing that Ricklety-Racklety song.
Yeah.
Ricklety-Racklety, now.
Please
That's what
don't
this
go into
reminded me
that.
of.
You're going to give me the creeps here. Don't go into that. I'm going to start looking out the window at the trees here. Don't do that.
So as as the bus moves along, the kids are getting less and less interested in singing songs.
Yeah, because there's a friggin' psycho demanding that you sing songs. I mean, he really is, I have to say, he is a true psycho, but he is trying to relate to the young kids in the best way he can.
This is his way when things are not going right.
Oh, man.
He smacks one of the kids and then says, I want you to all keep singing. And then they're just kind of looking at it. He goes, I want you all to keep singing. Your mother's going to die. If you don't start singing, I'm going to kill all your mothers. And you're going, oh, my God. It was not exactly the Fred Rogers approach. And then shortly after that, we see on an overpass that the bus is going to go underneath. We see Clint standing there, and I felt like he's like a matador.
Yeah.
Waiting for the charging bull. I feel like, cue Ecstasy of Gold, Ennio Morricone.
And as they're coming around the bend, Scorpio has time to see him, and he can't believe it. He's like, what the fuck?
Exactly. And what a hairy chase scene it is. He jumps over the overpass onto the bus.
Which I read is a real stunt. Clint did it. They probably had netting everywhere, and it wasn't actually, you know what I'm saying?
I don't care. He jumped on a fucking bus from an overpass.
It's at least 4 feet, so yeah, it's a good jump. Yeah.
A moving bus. So he jumps on the bus, and it's really hairy. He finally, Scorpio's so freaked out about it, he just punches the woman and knocks her to the floor and gets into the driver's seat, and he's swerving this bus back and forth with Clint on top.
He was also shooting a couple of times through the roof.
Shooting through the roof.
And I have to say, this is one of my favorite Clint Eastwood shots of all time. It's so outlandish. Harry... he looks down into the windshield with the gun like he's going to try
upside down like he's going to shoot.
He's going to get a shot. It's so outlandish and perfect. I love it. Just the balls of it. You know, just like he's aiming for a shot.
Absolutely.
He's so funny. I love that shot. And of course, Scorpio, he's trying to get Harry off the bus, and he pulls off into a quarry. He does a sharp turn, and Harry goes flying off the bus into a pile, right?
Right.
And Scorpio takes off, and he runs up into another great location, the Hutchinson's Rock Quarry. He climbs up through this great, stairs and...
a conveyor belt carrying all this gravel up and over, and it's so dusty. There's tons of dust and everything else there. You see some workers, and they have respirators on. You're going, oh my God, all the dust from this thing. And Clint Eastwood, in order to get up there faster, he climbs onto the gravel on the conveyor belt, and you're going, oh my God.
There's this chase that ensues, and suddenly Harry and Scorpio start shooting at each other.
Right.
So in your mind, you're like, one? You're starting to count. And this whole chase up, you can't keep count.
No way you can keep count. I've tried it before. You can't. So he finally makes his way out, and he grabs a hostage. Why does a kid have to be fishing?
I was just going to say
at that dock?
Scorpio makes his way, finally gets out of there, and lo and behold, there's a little kid fishing in a little pond next to a quarry. How these fish are alive, I don't know. But of course, there's a kid fishing.
So Scorpio grabs him, takes him as a hostage, and you think, all right, what's he going to do now? He's going to put the gun down, because he's telling him, put the gun down. And eventually, Harry just says, no. Boom.
Yeah, with balls, right? We've seen Harry's a good shot. He just raises his arm, fires, and knocks Scorpio. He knocks him in the shoulder, and then he goes flying to the ground.
But we're not done yet.
We're not done. The kid just scampers off.
The kid takes off. I have to wonder what the mother must have said to that kid when he came home. What do you mean that somebody almost shot you? So Scorpio's on the ground. Same, pretty much a mirror scene of the bank robbery scene.
And we're going through that same addition equation. We're trying to figure out, here we go again.
Did I do 5 shots or 6? He does the speech again, but it's more pointed and it's more gritting of teeth. It's not the same kind of self-confident feeling. He's just run down. He's just completely run into the ground, and he has just had it.
Yes. So when you're watching this film for the first time, without seeing all the other Harry films where they've done similar takes on this,
right?
It's such a great script device, I think.
Yes.
Because you're back to this moment you remember this amazing scene from the beginning.
Yep.
And it's bringing it full circle. It's perfect. It is like a perfect little script moment, like, holy cow.
So, being Scorpio listens to the whole speech and then he just goes, and goes for the gun. And you go, of course that's what he's going to do. He's a fucking nut. And luckily, Harry has one shot and finishes off Scorpio. And even the acting of Andy Robinson in the death sequence where he's just sinking down into the water dead is still brilliant.
Yeah.
Because you could just lay there and not do anything, but he just kind of falls into the water slowly with his mouth opening slowly. That's beautiful. There's not a false moment in that whole movie for him. He's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. And of course, Harry, he's had it. He takes out his badge. 2211 was his badge number.
And he tosses it as hard as he can out into the water.
Right.
It's brilliant. And you close with Lalo Schifrin music. What the hell else you want?
What more can you ask for in a movie?
Fantastic.
It's interesting that we picked Dirty Harry because part of our modus operandi has been unknown classics. And clearly, Dirty Harry's a classic film. And a lot of people know about it. But we were using it as the perfect example of a Don Seigel film, what he is great at. And that is telling stories visually. He actually invented this modern police genre in a sense. So obviously there's lots of police films out there, but this type of film with the rogue cop, and it's just a great movie, and it's so well done. It's very tight. It's well shot, well acted, everything.
It's because Don Seigel was an old pro at the time when he put that together. You could not have taken another director to do that film in the same way. You may have made an exploitation film of some sort, or shoot 'em up, etc., but not under the watchful eye and sure, steady hand of Don Seigel.
The old pro, as you said.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all the time we have this week.
We'd like to thank our friend Glenn Arnowitz for his music.
And of course, our listeners for tuning in.
So join us next week for another episode of
Film Detour.
If you like our show, please recommend us to your friends. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, and leave a review.
Go to our website at filmdetour.libsyn.com to leave comments or email us with questions. That's filmdetour.libsyn.com. You can also visit us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And you can also find us on YouTube.